Again? What's up?
The rain.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
So
my voice is still a little under the weather. I've been trying to get it back to normal, but I feel like it goes between like really high and barely there and like then really deep and froggy like I'm in a dungeon or something.
get the whole spectrum of Kermit the Frog, and then what's your boy
And Miss
from
Piggy. It
Miss
just goes
Piggy?
back and forth between the two.
Wow. Good thing I know what you look like, because if I didn't and I heard you on the phone, I'd be like, man, what's wrong with that dude?
Yeah. 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 He's going through all stages of puberty right
Right.
now.
Right. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can't do a podcast without video, bro. Like when you're sick, so this just will
Right.
not be good.
Would yeah. I'm sorry. Oof.
So
Yeah, you're right. That's too funny.
stuff.
So recently we've been talking with a couple of prospective clients and then some of our referral partners, and the conversation of kind of design keeps coming up, and I especially with one of the recent conversations we were having where we're trying to peel back this client's problem that they're having. And they kind of
Mhm.
months ago paid for a design project based off of the advice of someone close to them. I don't remember who. And that design cost them way more in than they paid for it, and way more than they're going to have to pay to get it fixed. Um, Tell a little bit about that. You know what I'm talking about, and then we can dive into the topic.
Yeah, obviously, with when we do these, we don't really bring up customer names because
Right.
that part's not important. But
Sure.
everything that we talk about is a true story. This is not like, oh, we just made this up for this podcast. These are real conversations and real meetings and real problems that business
Real
people
people.
are real. Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure these are real people having these problems, meaning that,
Hmm.
okay, well, let me kind of take you through the steps. So a bad design leads to poor performance on a website, which is e-commerce, which means that if you have poor performance there, obviously that leads to a decline in revenue for an e-commerce business that is heavily dependent upon
Yeah.
online traffic and sales. When that drops, that impacts the business, which then impacts the owner and the employee. So I bring that all
Yeah.
up to say that, one small change has this ripple effect that
Yes.
it can be enormous. And I mean, why
Yeah.
why that's important is because when you're going through those phases, I mean, I think what's important, whoever you're going to hire, to make sure that they understand the levels, meaning that it's not just a design.
Yes.
Bad design leads to poor sales. Poor
Hmm.
sales leads to a business that may or may not be able to sustain, which means that an owner may have to close his doors or lay off employees. So it's a trickle down effect. So
Right.
in this particular example that we're talking about, one of our prospects was encouraged to switch from one online e-commerce platform to another.
Hmm.
Now that happens. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the
Sometimes there
world.
can be legitimate reasons for
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the problem is, if whoever you're hiring, they don't understand the whole process and the impact of switching from one platform to another, and it don't, more importantly, they don't understand it, then obviously they can't educate you about what's supposed to happen next.
Yeah.
So there's the first phase. Okay, if it's necessary to switch, that's fine.
Hmm.
But I think the key is to make sure that you educate your client on, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what could potentially happen when we switch short term. Here's what's going to happen intermediate term, and here's what will happen long term.
That's a great point, and I think one of the challenges that because as you were talking, I remembered the other example that I was like, these two are like the key points.
Hmm.
Um, I think for him, I think one of the challenges is that the business owner is busy operating the
Yeah,
business. This
as they
isn't their
should be.
sphere, as they should
As
be,
they should be,
and
right?
this isn't their sphere of expertise. They don't always know that, like, oh, the filing the naming structure and this, and you transpose those two letters and it changes everything. You can lose so many backlinks all at once. And what does that mean? Well, then your site's domain authority score goes down and you lose ranking and then you're not visible. And then what happens? And those are dead ends. People stop coming. They come and they're in the wrong place, or they bounce, or they take a link that's dead and they don't get there. And and
Right.
all of that's impacted when we're talking about design. All of that's impacted by your design. Um,
Right.
we like to piece this out as coding or this or that, or well, this is so and so's fault or that's so and so's fault. That's just a blame game, right? At the end of the day, it's about the design of the process, the design
Hmm.
of the interface, the design of how the filing structures communicate across the whole thing. In my opinion, it just comes in under design. Then there's the creative visual aspects of that, and then there's the structural background pieces of those. And good
Right.
design, I stole this from the guy from, was it Thomas Watson Jr. at IBM, I believe. I love that quote. Good design is good business. And
Yeah.
he said that before all of what we have nowadays. Like, he wasn't even talking about what we're talking about. He was talking about
Right.
products in particular,
Right.
but
Right.
it's still true even of this. And the challenge I think business owners face is that they don't really know enough. There's so much information, Chris, and they
Yeah.
don't really know enough to know when they're getting bad information.
And and that's the, I'm going to call it the dirty part of our business,
Yeah.
our industry. You have a bunch of people who can high level sell this stuff, but they can't
Yep.
execute. They can
Yeah.
talk the talk. They can, make paint this beautiful picture,
Promise.
tell this beautiful story, over promise, under deliver.
Hmm.
And what it does is it leaves a bad taste in a buyer's. It just leaves a bad taste in their mouth. So
Never
now,
does.
when it's
No.
time to have someone fix it who knows what they're doing, I mean, the hesitancy is real, as it should
Yeah.
be,
And
because now
the
you,
price goes up
absolutely,
because,
because
and that kind of sticker shock problem is a big deal because they're having not to just create something from scratch or move from one thing to the other, but
right,
untangle a mess.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I always say this, but I tell people, I mean, that is the number one reason why after 15, 16 years we're still in business.
Hmm.
I mean, it's sometimes it's painful to have to tell a customer, no, that's not going to work. Or if that's the route you want to go, you know what, we don't believe that's going to work, so we're out. That's not the
Yeah.
right. And we have to do that some cases
Yep.
because, deep in our conviction, we know that, all right, it's not good to take someone's money and then not deliver,
Hmm.
because for the same reasons I mentioned earlier, it's a trickle down effect. And again, that's why, so many people have bad taste in their mouths when it comes to quote unquote marketing companies, just because
Hmm.
people will tell you anything, but they don't even understand the layers that it takes to get the
Yeah.
job done. And they don't, and more importantly, they don't set the expectations. I think that's the real thing.
Yeah.
um this is a long game.
I
I
think one of
mean,
the other pitfalls is that they're they've got a space that they play in, and they kind of package. This is why I'm not a real big fan of packaging solutions to
mhm,
resell, because
mhm,
especially in this space, the solutions have to be customized to your specific needs, your
right,
specific timing, your specific set of things and plugins and goals and language, like all of it. There's so many moving parts
right,
that there are a lot of companies, like marketing companies, that they've got an offer and they package what they do and they sell and resell it. And
right,
the other client that I was talking about, that I'm trying to help, he's trying to do a very specific thing, but it's really kind of cramping his website. He's taking the podcasts that he has and he's loading them, and sometimes the files are so large. We're talking about 1 gigabyte each, because he has to break it into two. So you get 2 gigabytes on a single page going up with a blog post. Very often, you talk about killing load speeds. You're talking about
yeah,
killing visitor experience. You're talking about all the things that are going to drive your ratings down. And he's been doing this for a long time because the marketing company that he's currently using is recommending that they do that because they can't embed the videos. And I'm like, of course you can embed the videos. Your website's built in WordPress. Why can't you embed the videos?
right,
Why can't you be using them on YouTube and Anchor and getting it to populate to all these different places and experiencing the benefits of the backlinks and having them come in, and then keeping your file size minimal so that your page load speeds are faster, your scores go up? Like, that's good design. What's the problem? oh, they can't pull that off. I'm like, why? It's built in WordPress,
Right, which
but
is
it's
the
not a part,
universal language of web design, right?
but it's not a part of their packaged solution.
Yeah, there
They're
you
like,
go.
oh, well, you can't do that with the way we built it. And I'm like, well,
There
that's
you
the
go.
problem then.
That's the
Like
problem.
you're offering them something in your wheelhouse. You're not offering them what's best for them to have.
Right.
And that's my other key issue with a lot of what goes on in marketing, because good design, he needs that good design in order for his site to run well and do what it's supposed to
Right.
do and his business to run well.
Right.
And good design is good business, and that's not what people are doing. They're settling for all this package or all this or all that, and it bothers me to see, because then we get left cleaning up the messes, or someone's so embedded in one of
Hmm.
those systems that
It can't get out
they
of it.
can't get out of it.
Can't get
Yep.
out of it except for to rebuild and lose everything that's there, and that's
And
the hard part.
yep, and then they plateau at a certain point,
Yeah.
and they can't figure out why they can't get more visibility, or can't figure out why,
Yeah.
I'm advertising and advertising, but why am I not getting? And it's like, well, your call to actions are buried over here and buried over there, and you need to redesign this and streamline your user interface to be more
Hmm.
visitor friendly. But oh, well, I can't do that because the marketing company that's hosting says that they can't do this and this and this, and
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's painful, right? It's painful.
yeah,
It's painful
yeah,
to
it's
hear. I
painful.
mean, but I think businesses that are customer centric, meaning that their values and their value propositions are solely relied on what's best for the customer versus what's best for internal.
Yeah,
Those are the companies that last. I mean,
true.
those are the companies. If you look in our history, I mean, when you think
Yeah.
about when people just use the generic term, well, good customer service. I mean, there are companies that come to your head. Now, everybody has a different definition of what good customer service is. But
Yeah.
if I say, hey, tell me a company that gives good customer service, it's going to be a company that puts you first.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be a company that says, you know what, it's more important that you're satisfied and you're happy, and then you're going to come back and spend money. Yeah, we may have to take a short-term loss, but
Yeah.
we're going to make our money in the long haul by making sure that you come back. So in this particular instance, the client that
Yeah.
we were talking about, so I didn't put numbers to it. I just said, hey, this is the long-term impact. But what we know from this client is that they were getting roughly, without saying names or what they do, they were getting, this is direct from the owner's mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
So they were getting, between 30 and 40 sales a month on really high-end products, really,
Really
really
high
high-end
end.
products.
Yeah.
Okay, which dropped down to 4 sales a month. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know their profit margin, but
I will
let's
say
say
this: they aren't cars,
they aren't
but they were
cars.
of the price range of a
So,
pretty expensive vehicle,
so let's
right?
just say on average they were making, I don't know, let's say they're making 5,000 per item.
Hmm.
You go from 30 to 4, whatever, that's $100,000 a month times 12 months. That's over $1 million. And again, I don't know how many businesses can sustain if you lose, $100,000 a month in sales.
Yeah. And
I
they'll
mean,
often see a quote for a
yeah,
redesign project that's
mhm,
somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000, depending on what they're trying to get accomplished, and they'll go, "Why so much?" But they don't ask that question after they've lost that amount of money,
exactly,
and
exactly.
that's the downside. Is it's really hard to see the value of what that means until you've
Hmm.
lost it, but
Hmm.
then having to pay for it once for it to happen, then having to pay for it again to fix it. And even once it's fixed, you're not back to, you
Where you
just
were.
lost
Yeah.
money to get back to where you were,
Yep.
right? And you were trying to spend money to get a little bit further. Uh, and it matters, man. Good design is good business. It absolutely matters.
And I
100%.
mean, I just want to take that a step further, like you said earlier, making sure that you and not to all the way understand it, okay? Because it's not
Sure.
if you're selling items online, yeah, you need to understand some of it, but it's impossible to understand it all because
Hmm.
I mean, you'll be sitting there doing that all day versus running your business. But
Yeah.
just making sure, like you said, understanding that
Yeah.
good design is not always what you see visually. Good design is making sure what's not seen is set up correctly so that it's going to work for you.
Right.
In some cases, you might have to get a trusted advisor if you can't do it yourself, if you don't have someone internally.
Yes.
It's worth the extra money to, maybe double check what your marketing company is doing to make sure that you're getting what they say that you're supposed to be getting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially again, if your livelihood depends on your website, it depends on your e-commerce. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that would be just
Yeah,
the
and the
caveat to the
sniff
good
test
design
with
of good business.
packages. The more
Hmm.
things just seem to be packaged, the less likely they are to be good for you. I mean, that's true even in food, right? Right.
Absolutely. I mean, how true exactly? Exactly. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no better example than that alone. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. I mean, really, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
I 100% agree. So,
Yeah.
all right, man. I think,
That's it. I got my rant. It's out of my system now. I said my piece. I'm
yeah,
good.
I know, man, and I hate that we have to, these conversations come out of necessity, and
Yeah.
I wish these were like not true stories. I
Yeah.
wish this was stuff that we were really making up, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's
Nope.
true stories, true painful conversations that we have to have. I mean, and they just suck.
Yeah, it
I
hurts to
mean, really,
watch people look at
there's no other
this.
word besides that. It just royally sucks. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so that's it, man. Well,
So stick with it. Good design is good business. We're gonna just
we're gonna we're
hammer
gonna
that
we're
home.
gonna we're gonna we're gonna we're gonna come on here and talk about some success stories too, because on the
Oh
other
yeah.
side of
Yeah.
this,
Yeah,
there
no,
are
that's true.
success
We do have a
stories.
client. We
Yeah.
have a client that we did that with,
Yeah,
which is a
we'll
great
talk
success
about
story.
them next
All
time.
right, all
Yeah,
right, cool, cool,
we'll
cool.
talk about them next time. We had to get this rant out just because
Yeah,
it's hot, it's fresh.
it is.
It was a conversation that we've had recently, but we'll talk about the other side of good design is good business the next
Yeah,
time.
we'll end on a positive note with that. That'll
There
work.
you go.
That'll work.
All
All
right,
right,
bro.
this is our 10th episode, by the way. This is
Wow,
episode number 10.
man.
So I don't know if you would realize that we've been that consistent and made it that far, but I wanted to just call that out. Like this
Man,
is we're hitting double digits. We're
man, we'll be
growing
in
up.
puberty. We'll be in puberty soon. So, so
But we're right now we're still hitting for that awkward teenage phase.
I know
So
that's why your voice is trying to change. You see that tie-in? That's exactly what that means. You set yourself up for that one, by the way.
I did. I did. Thanks for spiking it. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. All right, man. Well, if
All right,
that's
bro.
if that's everything, I think
That's
we're
it,
out.
man.
All right. Later.
Out.